When Singapore gained independence in 1965, few people believed it had any real chance of success. It was a tiny island nation with no natural resources, limited land, and a population divided along ethnic lines. Unemployment was high, housing was poor, infrastructure was weak, and the country had just been separated from Malaysia. Many observers predicted that Singapore would struggle for survival, yet within a single generation, Singapore transformed into one of the richest, cleanest, safest, and most efficient countries. This extraordinary transformation is attributed to one central figure, Kuan, the founding Prime Minister. At independence, Singapore faced enormous challenges. The British military, a major source of jobs, was preparing to withdraw. This meant the country would lose thousands of jobs and significant income. There were racial tensions between Chinese, Malay, and Indian communities. Organized crime and corruption were serious problems. Singapore had no natural resources to export. Unlike oil-rich nations, it had nothing obvious to rely on. Its survival depended entirely on human capital, strategic planning, and bold leadership. Kuan understood that Singapore needed practical, results-driven policies. One of his first priorities was establishing political stability. Investors do not put money into unstable countries. To attract foreign investment, Singapore needed law, order, and trust in governance. The government implemented strict anti-corruption laws and ensured public officials were paid competitive salaries. Over time, Singapore developed a reputation for clean governance, setting it apart from many other developing nations. Economic strategy was the next major pillar. Instead of protectionist policies, Singapore embraced globalization. The government focused on attracting multinational corporations by offering tax incentives, efficient bureaucracy, and world-class infrastructure. Singapore positioned itself as a global trade hub. Its geographic location along major shipping routes became a strength. Massive investments were made into developing the port of Singapore, which became one of the busiest ports in the world. By becoming a center for trade and logistics, Singapore integrated itself deeply into the global economy. Industrialization played a crucial role. In early years, Singapore focused on labor-intensive manufacturing to create jobs. Over time, it shifted toward high-tech industries, finance, pharmaceuticals, and advanced electronics. This evolution was carefully planned. The government actively guided economic growth through long-term planning. Agencies were created to identify promising sectors and attract foreign companies with expertise and capital. Education reform was another cornerstone. Kuan believed Singapore's only resource was its people. The government invested heavily in building a strong education system focused on mathematics, science, and technical skills. Schools were designed to produce a highly skilled workforce capable of meeting the needs of international companies. Over time, Singaporean students consistently ranked among the top performers globally in standardized tests. A strong education system ensured that economic growth was supported by capable and disciplined workers. Housing reform was also transformative. In the 1960s, many Singaporeans lived in overcrowded slums. The government established the Housing Development Board (HDB) to build affordable public housing on a massive scale. Within decades, the majority of Singapore's population moved into modern, clean, and affordable apartments. Home ownership rates increased dramatically. This improved living standards and created social stability. When citizens own homes, they feel invested in their countries. Success, infrastructure development further strengthened Singapore's competitive position. The government invested heavily in roads, airports, ports, and public transportation. Changi Airport became one of the best airports in the world. Public transport systems were efficient and clean. Urban planning ensured green spaces and orderly development. These investments made Singapore attractive for businesses and global talent. Another defining feature was its strict enforcement of laws. Singapore became known for its tough stance on crime, drugs, and vandalism. While some critics argued the government was too strict, supporters believed strong enforcement created a safe environment. Safety became a major selling point. Investors prefer stable environments where property rights are protected and crime is minimal. Financial services became a major engine of growth in later decades. Singapore developed itself into a global financial hub. Strong regulations, political stability, and efficient administration attracted banks and financial institutions from around the world. The country became a center for wealth management and international finance. This diversification reduced reliance on manufacturing. Importantly, Singapore maintained fiscal discipline. The government avoided excessive debt and maintained strong reserves. Budget surpluses were reinvested into sovereign wealth funds, such as Temasek Holdings and GIC, generating additional income. This forward-thinking approach ensured long-term financial security. Lee Kuan Yew's leadership style was pragmatic rather than ideological. He was willing to adopt policies that worked. Singapore combined elements of capitalism with strong state planning. The government maintained influence over strategic sectors. This hybrid model allowed flexibility and rapid adaptation. Social harmony was carefully managed. Singapore is a multi-ethnic society with Chinese, Malay, Indian and other communities. To prevent racial conflict, policies promoted integration and equal opportunity. Public housing blocks were designed with ethnic quotas. English was adopted as the main working language to unite different groups, while allowing mother tongues to be preserved. However, Singapore's model has also faced criticism. Some argue that political freedoms are limited compared to Western democracies. Media regulations and strict laws have raised concerns among human rights advocates. Yet supporters argue that these measures contributed to stability and rapid development during critical years. By the 1990s and 2000s, the results of Singapore's transformation were undeniable. GDP per capita soared, making Singapore one of the richest countries in the world. The skyline became filled with modern skyscrapers. The port and airport ranked among the best. Globally, crime rates were low, public services were efficient, and education standards were world-class. What had once been a struggling island with no resources had become a global powerhouse. The story of Singapore challenges the assumption that natural resources are necessary for prosperity. Instead, it demonstrates that governance, education, strategic planning, and integration into the global economy are more important. Singapore's rise was not accidental. It was the result of deliberate policy choices and disciplined execution over decades. Today, Singapore continues to evolve. It invests heavily in technology, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and green energy. It remains a key global shipping and financial hub. The foundations laid during its early years continue to shape its trajectory. In conclusion, the transformation of Singapore within one generation stands as one of the most remarkable development stories in modern history. From political instability and economic uncertainty in 1965 to becoming one of the wealthiest and most efficient nations, Singapore's rise demonstrates the power of vision, discipline, and long-term planning. Lee Kuan Yew's leadership, combined with institutional strength and a focus on human capital, built a nation that defied expectations. The lesson from Singapore is clear: size and resources matter less than strategy, stability, and smart governance.